Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Blaze Bell Show. Today's guest is Creatrix Consciousness coach and podcast host Maria Aleandra. Together, we discuss her work as a magical coach for visionary entrepreneurs, her family's journey through her husband's ALS diagnosis, the mindset tools to unlock your inner creatrix, and so much more. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited today. I am here with Maria Aleandra. She's also known as MA. She is a Creatrix Consciousness coach, mindset coach. One of my favorite terms, strategic sorceress. I mean, how good is that?
I love that you love it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's how you find your people. You throw in the word sorceress and then
It took me a while to own that, to put it. I remember putting it on the IG bio, those moments when you're like, wow, I'm putting something out there and I'm making it real. And so it's good to hear that, you feel it.
Well, it's like the more we do that, the more we kind of weed out the crowd. So people that are like I actually got a message one time on IG with someone who said, "Don't follow me, you're a witch." And I was like, "Oh wow. Oh, I didn't know." And they screenshot a picture I have that's really cool with a third eye thing, and they're like, "You're too witchy." And it was so interesting. And I'm like, "Huh. I'd never call myself that, but okay, I guess
Hey.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to own it and find all the witchy sorceresses around." So, also, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm wearing a necklace that says Creatrix.
What?
I'm gonna have to send you a link. I've had this for a few months, and I love that term so much.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So as soon as I got your information and saw that, I was like, sold. She's in.
I'm sold. I'm more in love with you. And when I was looking through your Instagram pictures, I saw, a few where you were wearing that necklace. And I was like, I wonder what it says. I was just so curious because I'm like, it doesn't look like her name. It looks like something else. So I called in you telling me, of course you're wearing the Creatrix necklace.
That is so funny.
Had to be.
So good. So tell me, I mean, what does that mean to you? What does that term mean to you? And what does your work look like? This podcast is all about healing and sharing tools with the world to bring us all to a better space in this crazy time. And so I would just love to hear about your life and what led you to this work and what this work looks like.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful invitation. It's such an honor to be here. I can tell we're going to have a good time. If it's not clear by the first minute of conversation, I'm in. So, Creatrix, and I really speak. I teach. I teach on behalf of Creatrix Consciousness. It's something that it really feels very channeled and very intuitive for me to bring into the world. And I see it as a set of, again, these teachings and these downloads and these ways of being and showing up that support us in aligning our inner drive with our divine wisdom. The Creatrix, I define her as she who turns light into form, right? So, and how we turn, our light is, our gifts, our passion, the obstacles we faced, the journeys we've been on, our experience, our skills. And so we basically alchemize all of that and turn it into form. And the form takes shape of the businesses we build, the books we write, the art we create, the movements we lead, the communities we gather and hold space for. And so if you think about turning light into form, that is the essence of being a creatrix. And it's understanding that you are creating your path as you go, and that it takes equal parts intuition, vision, and a lot of momentum, like forward momentum, and taking the actions that then ground in all of the cosmic juiciness and divinity of the true creatrix of turning, creating something from nothing. And I also speak a lot into that honoring of both our self mastery and also our mystery, that space where we can hold for all of who we are and all the unknown of who we are, which is what feels so like magnetic when we're like, oh, like all the unknown spaces. But it can also be, of course, incredibly scary because that's where the leaps of faith and the bigger risks that we might take in our lifetimes come in, because we're walking, into unknown territory. And a little bit about my life. So now I speak on behalf of Creatrix Consciousness. So I say I'm a guardian for this movement. Um, and I'm also a business coach. I coach, visionary entrepreneurial women who either have a business that they want to take to the next level or are aspiring entrepreneurs. And, I spent, before this iteration of my life, I spent many years in the corporate space. I worked for a television network in branding and marketing. And I spent a lot of years really honing a lot of really valuable skills in that space. And I went from like corporate gal who, this was not not in the cards. Although I did have a period of pink hair while I was working in my corporate job, and I'm really proud of that because I was like, I'm going to do it, and that's it. Um, but anyway, so I spent almost 16 years in the corporate space, from when I graduated school, and it was one of those classic stories that many of us have felt or certainly have heard from others that, I know I'm meant for something more, dot, dot, dot. And am I ever be able to, will I ever be able to truly live like fulfill my potential, that piece of like that potential that you feel that you're going into this 9 to 5 job. Nothing against 9 to 5 jobs, but when you know that there's something else calling you, it's like, I say it's called a calling because it's going to keep calling until you answer the phone. And then are like, oh, hi. Okay. I got to do something about this. And that's how I felt. And for me, the big catalyst moment where I had like a fork in the road is, so I'd been, um, you know, uh, my entire life feeling very connected energetically to things beyond our, earthly realm, and also playing very comfortably in both spaces, but very much that sense of spirituality and that sense was in my, like, kind of in my head. It was a classic, like in the closet in terms of all of that. Um, it took a while for me to actually bring it into the forefront of really speaking about it, of really living it, like, outside for others to see, even the people that were closest to me. And I played very well. I and not just not played because that sounds like I was faking it, but I could also own that role of, again, that very corporate strategic, figuring things out and, being a rock star at my regular traditional job. That then the turning point, one of the turning points for me was early February 2018. I got laid off unexpectedly. And I was already like a senior brand director in my company. I had grown and I was like, all right, this is the path and here we go. And I got laid off. There was some restructures happening. And it was one of those, like, that's it, you're done. My husband and I had just bought a house that same day. Like, we had signed a contract on a new home that same morning. And then and I, like, at 1:30, HR called me to like have the conversation. And I remember driving home in a daze, like, wait, what? And then, thankfully we were able to get out of that mortgage and we stayed in the place we were in. And I knew at that point, I was like, there's a big shift here where I could either go down the path of just finding another job similar to mine, which, would have been sort of the normal thing to do, or really try at this space, exploring the space of what I was really feeling called. And I had been certified as a coach years ago, years prior to that, and it was skills that I used in my job as a boss and all that stuff. But it was always deep down inside. It was like there was something about that idea of helping others find their path, their passion. I naturally gravitated towards that, even at my job, and especially at my job, whether it was interns that I worked with or younger professionals or colleagues. They would be magnetized to me and ask questions about, okay, well, where do I go and what do I do? And I loved that. I loved that exploration and discovery with others. And so I was like, okay, well, how can I take that? And then it started off on that path and it evolved into even a truer, more authentic version of me, which is where all of the more spiritual stuff really started to come in. And it was kind of like you can't, I couldn't put it away any longer. It was like, okay, this is here. And you're a business coach and you're a spiritual channel. Okay, cool. And how does that fit together? And of course, more and more, especially because of the times we're living in and because it's so accessible now to have these conversations and have these resources where you're listening to other women and men. But let's say, women like us that are living that life of doing both, like that intersection of both of those worlds, is really, there's something really special there, because you no longer have to fit one particular mold. You can really bring all of you. And that's how I coach my clients. It's not so much about finding, it's like the classic, like, let's find your niche, who you're meant to serve. I like to start from, like, what is it that really lights you up? Like, who do you really want to work with? And then other stuff falls into place. And then you get more strategic and specific and all that, because I think that's important as well. It serves you as a business owner and it serves your client. But it's so, like, the possibilities are endless. And so I like to live in that space now. And I go through all my life stuff. I'm a mom. I have a 4-year-old son. I have a husband who was diagnosed with ALS last year, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. May is actually ALS Awareness Month as we're recording this. I'm not sure when it's airing, but that's been a whole new curveball in our lives. That's been completely, just imagine, like, talk about bringing out, like, okay, how do you really truly desire to live your life? Because ALS is a condition that the life expectancy is just 2 to 5 years on average. And I say that, and it's like, yeah, and it's chilling to say, and I can say it because I've processed a lot already of what it means, and I've made a really important choice of staying in the moment, as has my husband. But my husband's going to be 37 in July, young couple, and we're living this. So even more reason for me to really make some, really show up in my life in ways that are completely authentic, even and especially when it scares me, and just can keep doing the thing and hopefully inspire others and provide tools for others to do the same in their way. So in a nutshell, it's a little about me.
Wow, 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 wow. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm so sorry about your husband and what a journey that
Thank
must
you.
be. He's so lucky to have you.
Thank you.
So,
I
ah,
appreciate I appreciate that.
yeah. And as far as the work you are doing in the world, I mean, I'm just proud of you. Like, I just met you, but I just feel so proud of you for having the courage, and I just think it takes so much courage and hard work to be an entrepreneur, especially a spiritual one, I feel, where you are just putting, you're being willing to say, I know that I'm a multidimensional person. I don't want to be the cookie cutter anything. I will happily care of my corporate job and just wait for them to say something. and, but I understand the strategy and marketing that goes into, like, pick one thing and that's your thing, and, be that person. I get that. But at the same time, some of us, it's like, there's so much. There's just
Mm-hmm.
so many. And even as for me, sometimes people are like, what all are you doing?
Oh
I
yeah.
see there's just a rainbow around me, and each color is a different thing, and they seemingly don't fit together until I'm under that rainbow, and it's like, oh yeah, that's all Blaze. Like, that all makes
Mm-hmm.
sense in that person's being. And I think that's just more fun, It's just
Yes.
like,
Yes, completely, completely. I mean, what you spoke about, the multidimensionality and the giving ourselves more and more permission to exist in that fullness, like the full spectrum of who you are. I love the idea of sitting under that rainbow. And to also speak for any entrepreneurs out there that are resonating with, like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really valuable to have a sense of focus around how to explain to others who you are, what you're about, what you're passionate about, what you do, what you sell, because that then creates the bridge, and that helps the person, like, click. Like, people need also spaces to click, like, into you, almost like to plug in and go, ah, yes. And that does not limit you in the least, because there's so much more. And one of the things that I find, speaking into that multidimensionality, because a lot of the women I work with tend to have that, like, but the, like, all the things, like, how can I possibly describe? And I'm like, you can't, because you are too magnificent and radiant and incredible to capture all of who you are in like a little one-liner that you're going to share in your website or Instagram or when you introduce yourself for a podcast. But let's get you to a place where you feel comfortable about that this is what I'm up to in the world, and people can get that or feel at least intrigued enough that they want a little bit more. And what you were saying about entrepreneurship and courage, sister, I just like earlier today I sent an email to my list about the concept of like risk and reward when you're an entrepreneur, and the gist of it was about that. It's like, entrepreneurship, like nobody should go into this path lightly. You should go at it with a lot of passion and conviction, and with an air of curiosity and wonder. Like, if you really want to try this out, you must. I don't want to deter anybody from it. And I also, in that same breath, want to say, don't go at it lightly, because it's challenging. It will unearth all of the triggers and fears and all of the things, like, I'm sure you've been there. It's like, and especially when, like you said, we're spiritual, some sort of spiritual leadership, messaging capacity, combining different things at once. And when you're the face of your what you do, it's not just a job. It's your I call it your divine appointment. It's like what you're here to put out into the world. And I mean, there's nothing light about that. Like, it's all light, but there's nothing like, easy about that. It's challenging, and it's so completely worth it. And there's this rhetoric around, you know, how easy it is to become an entrepreneur, and become an entrepreneur in like, 2.5 minutes doing this course, and, make X amount of dollars every month and get the fancy car. Like, you just scroll through Instagram and it's like, this is what we're faced with. And I was like, do not do it for that. Like, don't, like, all that stuff is great and dandy. And who doesn't want a fancier car? Sure. But do not do it for that. Don't go at it for that, because it's just not sustainable, especially when you are on a really heart-centered, like soul-centered expression of who you are. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
otherwise it's not sustainable, because it does require showing up in a way that you probably haven't been faced with showing up before. It's that rawness, that vulnerability, that like, here I am. And I said, but what I will promise you, I can't promise you that you're going to make X amount of money, or you're going to like quit, maybe it's going to take a little bit longer to quit your 9 to 5 than you wanted, wherever you are in your journey. But what I can promise you is that on this path, if you take yourself on, you will become so much more authentic and a much more alive version of who you've been. Like sparks will fly. Sparks will fly. And whether you keep on that path or not, it is one of the most exhilarating and courageous, but how incredible to like work in that space and to like churn that out of your heart and not live in the default conversation, the default ways of being, but to really design how you want to show up in the world. It's powerful stuff. So, yeah.
It really, really is. I wholeheartedly agree. And I love seeing entrepreneurs who are helping others heal, also creating wealth for themselves, because my beliefs around money are that if you are a sketchy person, you're going to be sketchy when you're poor and super sketchy when you're super rich. If you're a great person who's generous, you're going to be as generous as possible when you're poor, and incredibly generous when you're wealthy. And I want to see more of that. And I want, I have these dreams and these visions and these goals that some of them cannot be attained unless I have massive wealth.
Yes.
And the things that I would do are just, I could do on a level that I can't at the moment.
Yes.
And so, of course, yeah, we can touch people's lives right now where we're at, and we can do things one-on-one and in groups and try to reach people through social media. But there's just more and more. And, so I've always felt, I think probably like you, where I'm like, I know I am on a mission. Like, I feel like I'm on earth as a job.
Yes.
And there's like a whole team rooting me on, and I'm like, okay, tag me in, let me go. And just reawakening to that in adulthood, and then going, okay, am I brave enough to quit the 9 to 5 with the good health insurance? Am I ready? Can I do this?
That health insurance, my goodness. I swear they created the difficulty in health insurance, at least in the US. They kind of created so like in a down low way to keep visionary women from like leaving their regular jobs.
I
Because
feel
I've had
that.
this conversation with so many other women, and that what was one of the big things of like, do I leave my job?
Yeah,
Like, and I love the way you said about, playing into those really big visions that we have requires a different level of resources. And it's like the more, the more big hearted and the more we want to impact the world, like that will be multiplied when we have the resources.
exactly.
And but the way we go at it, it's like that's not the end goal. It's not about it's that is almost like those are the resources required for me to really show up in my fullness and to enjoy the heck out of my life in terms of course, like,
Yeah,
but it's a different way of looking at it. Because here's the thing, if if the reason why you start on this path is solely based on immediate results, let's say, right, that may not happen right immediately, because there's a lot to do, learn, explore, try, fail, try again, shift, pivot. I call them shivets. You shivet here, you shivet there. It's a shift and a pivot in one. Like if you're not willing to develop that like muscle of resilience of like, you know what, here we go. And here we go again. And here we go again. It's so many will probably like put like put their dreams aside because
yeah,
there were. And I'm a very human woman as well, who also like, I'm like, okay, I need the resources to like do the things in my life. And so, and entrepreneurship, there's no guarantees in terms of your paycheck and stuff like that. I wouldn't change it for the world though. And I'm willing to keep going at it. And I have that clear vision path, which by the way, wasn't like an immediate thing of like, okay, it's something I've also clarified over time. But when you're there, like my goodness, the freedom of just being you is just so juicy and so delicious and so like, mm. And that's the feeling I would want for every woman who desires that, is to feel that aliveness of showing up in the world as you
yeah,
and sharing your gifts, like
absolutely. I love that. Juicy, wild woman. Yeah. So
yes.
today I was on your website and I downloaded a meditation. I can't remember
Mm,
what it was called right now, but basically you had me like feeling into a goal, a
yes.
dream, and then taking all these moments and coming back in and taking notes. So now I'm going to write a book and I have the date set and I know I've got a
I
whole
was
plan.
gonna say, did you like it? Did you like the meditation? Because I actually created that very recently in the past couple of weeks. So it was good. It worked.
Oh, it worked. You know,
Good.
and I was like, okay, let me go with intuition, not with my brain, see what pops up. And I was like, write a book. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Which is something
so
I, of
good.
course, have thought about before, but haven't done yet. And I keep just putting it off because
Yes.
it sounds challenging.
I
But
know. I'm on that boat too. I'm
yeah,
so glad to hear that. I've only heard from a couple of people that have actually like I've talked to that have done it. And that to me was creating that resource was an answer to trying to combine in a 10 to 12 minutes, a very quick experience, but a way of helping others build momentum on something, like define something that they want to create and actually get it going, using that space of intuition and also like the inner drive. So it's kind of an experiment because it's an audio journey that's not quite a meditation. It's not quite like, it's more of an active, like it is an act. I call my meditations more activations because it feels more like something that really like catalyzes something in you, moves something in you. But that one felt very experimental and a really beautiful space of like that in between, which is where I'm always striving to find that space of equilibrium, is that inner drive and that divine wisdom, that space of like, I'm, the ethereal and the corporeal, like my goddess self and my human self, and have them have conversations. I did a reel that I posted this week about like my goddess self having a conversation with my human self. And
Oh,
it's been hilarious. And I've had so many comments of like, I can't stop watching this. This is so on point. Like, oh my God, this is too funny. And I see it and I just crack up because I'm like, it's just this is what it is. This is reality. And sometimes I don't know if this happens to you, but some periods of time, my like goddess vibes are like, I'm just like floating and then other times I'm like very much like grounded and here. And it's like you just ebb and flow. So it's like, okay, continuing to come back and come back and come back and not be one of the things I hear overwhelmingly of, women that I've either worked with or are in my email list is this piece about intuition. Like all of us yearn to understand our intuition, to learn to trust it. And where, again, I go into the momentum is developing the courage to act on your intuitive nudges. That's the piece where it's like, okay, that's when things get both scary and super juicy at the same time.
yeah. Yeah, I've been leaning into that more often. I got a little bit into human design and found out I was a generator and sacral and all about the gut, which
That's me too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And I've been going on my gut for a very long time now, but it inspired me to lean in even more and just go like, okay, just for today, I'm just going to make every decision based on what my gut feeling is telling me. And it's awesome. And and I even was thinking like, because I'll say, let me think with my heart instead of my head, or vice versa. And I'm like, no, I don't want to think with either of those. I'm going with my gut. That's my number one.
I like that.
beacon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love all of that. Now, what about the archetypes? I saw a blurb about archetypes. I don't know if there's a quiz. Like, how do you know what are some of them? What's mine? How do I find out? It's cool.
Well, so the archetypes, the 4 archetypes in the Creatrix Consciousness universe are trailblazer, healer, artist, and activist. So you probably, I mean, at first blush, you're like, you're into healing. So, but I think you have a lot of trailblazer in you. And that may be the one that actually comes through in the quiz. I do have a quiz. If you go to my Instagram, you can find the link for it. And then, you get a little bit more in terms of, okay, well, what does this archetype mean for you? And what are some of the divine feminine archetypes that embody that, the essence. And I really believe that we all have all of these within us, no question. I think it really captures the creatrix in general, is that we are trailblazers, activists, healers, and artists, like all of the things. And also in your lifetime or in certain cycle seasons of your life, you may embody like one more predominantly. And that also just helps, just like in human design, which it's different, there's a lot more science behind it, but it helps you to make decisions from that place. It gives you another tool to be like, oh, okay. And also I find what those things do in a lot of instances is they give us the permission to lean into that. It's like, oh, and I've had women that have said, oh, I thought I was going to be this one. I was surprised I'm an artist. Like I have a friend who's like super like, straight shooter. And she's like, I'm an artist. And I'm like, yeah, you are. She was like, that feels so freeing. Like I can lean into that a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, you can. Like, I was like, of course you're an artist. You're like a performer at heart. And um, so those instances I think are so incredible, because then it gives you that like, oh yes, like I feel that. And I love, then we can begin to coach from that perspective. And how do you embody this more? What are the blocks and the resistances that you feel around that specific archetype? And then the other piece is, so in terms of the ecosystem of the Creatrix consciousness that exists right now, it's the archetypes. And then I also speak into these Creatrix codes, is what I call them. And I started to download and channel these codes from late last year, like September of last year. And that was sort of the birth of this new Creatrix, movement. It was like, that's really where it came from. And the codes are these very foundational, tools that we get, or it's like an essence or something, or a theme that we get to activate at a certain point. It's almost like they come through for us to activate at that time. um and it helps me to know, it's like receiving guidance on, okay, what do I focus on teaching right now at this time? Like, what's the code that we all get to recalibrate? Things like sovereignty and leadership and universal things, but there's something about them that's like, okay, we're meant to look at this through the Creatrix lens. Um, and then the other piece is what I call light print planning or light print path, which is something I developed that helps us um, make plans, make decisions, like chart the course for how what we want to do over a period of time. Again, in a very like I'm aligning that inner drive and divine wisdom. So tapping into the different faculties that we have and helping guide how you can plan differently and how you can open up space, like you said, to kind of turn off the logical mind, which our mind is a really valuable tool that is meant to serve the queen, the goddess, the creatrix, and doing her work in the world, right? But oftentimes, or up until we can make that switch, which is difficult, our default is to be led by the mind because we've been rewarded so much by making decisions from that standpoint. Like, our worth is tied to the decisions we've made that align with the default collective in that sense. So with those, the archetypes, the creatrix codes, and then that whole light print, which I would say that the meditation that you did, that activation is basically like a representation of that. It's like light print planning. And I say light print because also, like, receive that in a moment of like, and to me, light print is your unique fingerprint in the world, like, who you are. It's like your thumbprint of divine appointment, what you're meant to do in this lifetime. And then when you go at it from that sense, then it really serves to help your ability to know how unique you are, and that even if you're doing something that other people have done before, nobody's ever going to do it the same way, which of course we've heard many times, but it's hard to like embody that, to really like internalize. And so that's where it's like, okay, let's activate your light print so that you can really feel that in your bones in a different way. um, and speak with more clarity and confidence about what you're up to in the world. And, I do a lot of coaching around external judgment, procrastination, perfectionism, all the patterns and beliefs that have kept us like, you know, tying the dimmer switch, that like we bring ourselves down, the too much, the this, that, the imposter syndrome, all of these things that are just that it's like all these spells we're under that we're meant to like break, but it takes time. And I think there's like a legion of light workers right now on earth that's really working to break a lot of these spells that we've been under for a very long period of time, and generations after will really benefit from that incredible work that we're putting ourselves through right now. And that's part of the courage that it takes to keep showing up like time and time again, because we're not just building a business, we're literally changing a paradigm of how, women are seen, healers are seen, the spirituality that you bring into your everyday. I mean, all of it. So it's yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's really powerful. Really powerful. And I like how you're talking about breaking the spell, because I can look back at times as I was awakening where it really actually felt that way. Looking back, it's like I'm seeing differently. Something has lifted, and there's been a few layers of that over my lifetime. And yeah, I think that's really great. And the work with your mind, being able to connect to your body. A lot of my past, the things that I work with are like trauma and addiction, which are both things that I've worked really hard to overcome, and
Mm-hmm.
what I help other women and men with it right now. And just the self-judgment, but really the rewiring the brain is so
Mm-hmm.
huge, and the reparenting for so many of us.
Yes.
And it's work, and it's uncomfortable, and but the rewards, especially depending on how you're doing the work, the rewards can come so fast. It's
Yes.
like, oh, this feeling's lifted, relief, and watching the people around you heal. Just, I feel like if I heal, then my daughter and
Yeah.
my mom and my grandmother and my ancestors are all
Yes.
healing at the same time. And
Yes.
so, rather than trying to shake any family member to make them do the healing work, I try to just like, I'll do it. And when people ask for my help, I'm available.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lesson I think a lot of coaches have to learn at a certain point.
Oh,
Like,
totally.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll wait for you to ask.
Yeah, I know. I've been there a few times and have made things kind of uncomfortable a couple times. I won't lie.
It's
But we
hard.
keep learning. We keep learning. And it's like we're so just driven to like we see something there that it's like, if only, like if only.
So what
Yeah.
drove you then, like, to this? I mean, I know you had another career before this, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, there's usually something that has driven a
Mm.
person to the point of wanting to help someone, whether it's something you personally overcame or if it was just on your heart.
Yeah.
Curious.
That's such a beautiful question. I think for me it's just living in that space of what I felt was a lot of constriction, of that not fully living the fullness of your life, which I think, it sounds like, oh, the stuff in life or the experiences in life. And that wasn't it. It was a really deep, like, I'm not I'm not me in the world. And am I just playing something that I'm meant to like play through people pleasing? And for a lot, we can play that role really well for a long time, but we still feel that deep inside. And it was just it's so incredible to me when you can. And I also think that part of it is having having the vision, not just the vision of like, oh, this is the vision for my job, but literally like having something in you that just moves you in a direction that you may not fully understand. And this even happens to a lot of the women that I've worked with, where it's like I can see things for them, like I can like see things and hold space for things for them that they're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know how, but this is gonna happen. And then things happen and they look back at me and they're like how? And I'm like, well, I something in me is wired to birth new things in the world and to help others do that. And so it's such a beautiful question because it wasn't like a moment of like it was lots of little moments, and it was more for me about how do I successfully, when they say that like classic like get out of your own way phrase, which I want to kind of like reword that, because it is getting out of your own way, but it's more about like shedding the layers that just aren't you. And the more I did that, the more it was like, oh, okay, okay. Um, and I think life also, I really believe that as souls, we choose into the lifetime that we're going to live, and we choose into the experiences, uh, and so there's that like, oh, okay, yeah, like there was a clear opting into not only that, but also, what I'm experiencing with my husband, and, all of the things that it's like, I really believe I am, there's a design there. Um, and I also believe you have a big hand in how you like, materialize that which is there. It's almost like the raw materials are there, and then you craft it into, you craft the clay into those pieces. But yeah, it feels more like just like it was there. It just and if I didn't follow it, I would have been having a very different conversation right now, like feeling like, you know, no.
Yeah.
And
And it
yeah,
would have
and
still been knocking. Yeah.
yes, yes. And I mean, when you think about the trajectory of my past couple of years, like so much has evolved. My life has changed so drastically in an amazing way, that whereas before I was kind of painting the picture and envisioning, those like goals I had for myself and what I wanted to create. And I was like, I don't even know how, like how. I mean, this is my job. This is what I do. I'm the main breadwinner. My husband was a teacher at the time. So, I had all the good benefits. It wasn't a place for me to like, now I'm going to go do this. That was like the path. I was like on a track. And I was like, the universe clearly had other plans, and I listened, and I was like, okay, let me take those leaps and begin to articulate first to myself and then to people close to me, like, my partner, and especially him, because we're crafting a life together. So as I began to articulate what mattered first to me, like getting honest about, this is what I'm about, and I don't have the answers yet, because the thing also about this path, whether it's entrepreneurship, certainly like more, spirituality, healing, and all that jazz, is there, while of course there are a myriad of, incredible playbooks that we learn from and we know now, and for society there's no playbook. There's only like, okay, this is what kind of works, and this is what I don't understand, and so therefore it probably won't work. And so, when you're going down that path of, this is something that's so completely new, it can be easy to get deterred by the other people that don't understand you, which is where the power of being in community with others is so valuable. For me, certainly being in community with other women that got me in that space was like transformative, because I was a classic like lone wolf, and I still am in some respects, but it's a whole different story of how I co-create, collaborate with others. And I mean, that's one of the main pillars of Creatrix Consciousness, is this ability. And one of the codes is really like co-creation and collaboration, is how we're able to come together to alchemize something new and have that, collaboration over any sense of competition, which is a much more patriarchal energy that just bring your energy down. And it's also very normal and natural to feel that, because, we're human. But again, it's all about that awareness of, where am I in that sort of spectrum of, and how can I bring myself like to the next iteration of showing up. I know I've peppered in like a million things. I hope it all kind of makes sense. um so,
No, that's good. Well, and I think too, you're talking about these different paths that we get to take. We get so much choice in this life. And I also think that a lot of us are playing out a life based on shoulds from our parents.
yes.
And then also based on this cookie cutter life that was created not with freedom and our best, wild lives in mind. It was created to, go to school for babysitting because the men are at war, and learn this because, I don't know, let's make something up to learn. And then you have to get married and have this many kids, and you buy a house and you go to college. Well, now the system with college is all upside down, and people are in just mountains of debt, even with their amazing job they got, and it's like, it's just too confined. Like,
Yeah.
the system needs to evolve as we've been evolving and going, well, what if I want to try this? Well, that doesn't feel good. Does it matter that doesn't feel good? Does that matter that that's what my dad wants, but I'm not interested at all? And now I've spent the last 10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to study it or whatever, so
100%.
I totally feel that. And I think, again, like, I look at my life, and even just sitting here right now, like, I can see different timelines that are available to me. And I can see, like, am I going to go this way and create this legacy that I want to leave here? I could pass away at any time. What's going to be left behind that can continue to serve people? Or, and that takes a ton of courage. And it's just a lot. It requires self-motivation and showing up. And like you were saying, when we are, our brand and our message is intrinsically tied with us, it's like, I'm always thinking about integrity. And do I want to, talk about this product? Is it high enough integrity? Because I don't want anything to mess with me, and for anyone to turn away if they could actually use the mission I'm here for, to help them through their trauma and their abuse and, overcoming. And so
It's a lot, but it's like so important.
Yeah.
To me, it's my biggest mission. But
Mm-hmm.
there's always this other one where I could get the 9 to 5 and I could get a good job that is fine. And I could sit at home and get a big screen TV and I could start drinking again, like wear like moms and wine shirts. Like I've been sober for almost 10 years now. I'm not gonna do
Mm.
that. But that's available to me. I can
Yeah.
numb out and I've done that though already. Like I've done it and I was numbing that voice that you're talking about, that calling that's like,
Mm.
hello, you
Mm.
forgot. It's time to wake up. You got work to do. Stop drinking. Stop.
I love that you're speaking into that with such like clarity and rawness, because that's, I mean, yeah. And we do that in a variety of ways. Like the numbing happens in so many ways
Yeah.
because that path is just, it's the uncharted path. And earlier today, I was talking to somebody else like in our wavelength. And I said, when you're blazing a new trail, like many of us are, there's moments when you're literally like you're carving a new way through the forest, the jungle, whatever, metaphorical space you want to be in. And there are moments that you like pause and look around and go, what the F am I doing? Like, really? Like, there's nobody here. This feels kind of lonely. And we're never, the support will be there when we call on it. Right. But it takes then that courage of like, hey, like, who do I get on my team? And knowing also that we have a team, like you said, that's like here for us. But sometimes it's crickets also. Like I swear, sometimes they just got kind of all get together and just zip it because there's some big lesson we've got to learn. And I've had those moments when I'm like, you guys, like I want to hear something, and I like now, and they're like, do 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 do, and I'm like, really, really, like now. That's not the majority of the cases, but yeah, you feel those moments when you're like that path, that choice of like, oh, I could go over there and it could be something that's more normal in a lot of ways. But there's that, that's why it's like when you're doing it, especially I have this distinction. I say, visionary entrepreneurs. And for a while I've been like, I use that because to me, the visionary entrepreneur is that it's more about that kind of, spiritual vision of the impact that I know my life is meant to have. Um, and for some of us, we want to make an impact in bigger ways, bigger audiences, right? We're called to that. For other people, the impact is meant to be in intimate spaces, with so it's the impact is the same. Like when you desire to make an impact, that's part of, again, your divine appointment. You're wired for that. So to find the courage in your human form to fulfill the expression of that, that's the key. It's like finding the courage in the here and now to fulfill that expression and know that it's there for a reason. And that's a constant, ever evolving journey. There's no point where you're like, oh, I got this. That's it. Like smooth sailing from now on. It certainly gets easier in the sense that, you have more tools, absolutely. It gets easier and easier. But then, there's new levels of growth and new levels of like, lessons to learn and ways to expand so that you can hold more space, hold more energy and more space for the bigger things that you're meant to do in the world.
Yeah. And I think being really honest with yourself too, as you try different things. So, am I nervous because I'm just scared because I've never done this? Or am I nervous because this isn't right for me and I don't need to do this because some other coach is doing it, and I have a great friend who's a life coach, and she and I like kind of opposite parts of it where, my preference is to be on stage. I want to be on a stage in front of 1,000 people singing and dancing and motivational speaking. And she's like, I never want to be on a stage. I don't want to have a podcast.
There you go.
But she loves one-on-one coaching and small group coaching. And she offers the most beautiful work. And it's completely fulfilling to her and her clients. And she also has a job as a teacher that she absolutely loves. She doesn't want to stop doing that. She likes both. And, there are people that their calling isn't I'm not trying to say that everyone with an 8 to 5 job isn't doing their calling, because there's a lot of jobs out there. My ex is a music professor, and it's his dream.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's like, I teach guitar, everyone's favorite song, all day long on guitar to college students, and it's just a blast. Like, he's the least stressed
Completely.
person I've ever met, And so it's like the calling can look different for different people. And I'm also not trying to say drinking a glass of wine is wrong. It's not. For me, I can't do that personally, but that, obviously that wasn't my point, and also watching TV, but it's just, I've lived that life where that's all I did.
Yeah.
And it was not to relax and get pleasure and have a social or, a nice experience. It was to escape.
Yeah.
And so again, it all comes back to the intention.
Yeah.
Being really honest with ourselves about where we're at and why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes. Yes. And I love that example. It's such a beautiful example of you and your friend who's a coach. I resonate with very much with your vision and what as like the stages, the podcast, the speaking, and for a while I was like, why, isn't that kind of self-serving? Like for a while I got in, like, isn't that sort of like, and then I realized this is one of the things that we get to realize as the creatrixes that we are, is that you're here with a certain set of gifts and things that you can do that feel really good, that are in your zone of genius, that can impact the world in such powerful ways. And that goes back to the like dimming your light, because it's like, oh, if I'm too bright, then what will people think? Am I, quote unquote, going to hurt somebody, their feelings or whatever? And the more we own into that, like, this is what I desire. This is what I desire. And you articulate that, we give ourselves more and more permission to go there and to try the things and to celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other for going there. And it looks different for everybody. And just like we shouldn't be following our parents' formula, also like of those around us, like let's learn from people that we know we can learn from, and obviously co-create, collaborate with, and also like have our own beehive, so to speak. Like you get to be the queen of your own beehive and figure out what that means for you and what that feels like for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, before we wrap up, I mean, thank you. Like, you've given so much information today and just shared so much of your heart. And I can tell that, this is the work that you live and breathe. And it's just, you just look excited just to talk about it. And I love that. And I'm sure all of your clients just get your full attention and energy. And I think that's so powerful to be able to share that and experience that. So thank you for giving us some of that good
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So before we end, I ask everybody this, especially coming off of the pandemic. We're still kind of in it, easing out, I think. Who knows what's happening next? But, for people that are out there struggling right now, that have had, maybe lost friends and family, lost finances, all just dealt with the uncertainty that is so hard for our human, systems to deal with. What advice or tools or just any words of wisdom, something someone can do or hold on to that comes to mind?
Yeah. What came to mind right away is the idea of choice, right? And choice is something that's so powerful. And, especially when things happen in our lives that are outside of the realm of our control, that test us. And it's like, one of the big things that happened with the pandemic and everything last year is, this idea of the illusion of control just became completely like turned on its head. But knowing that you always have a choice, and beyond that, what I said earlier, and I know this might be a little more like esoteric to kind of grab onto, but just explore with the thought that your soul chose the experiences it was meant to have in this lifetime, and that it is fully equipped to navigate them. And that's one of the things that kept me, when I think about the most, unsettling, most painful thing that's happened in my life is, my husband getting this diagnosis. And so one of the things that helped, I had the ability to stay in this very grounded space, because I understood that somehow I was perfectly capable of navigating this really, really harsh reality. And that if I held on to that and not looked at things from a victim perspective, and I'm not saying that, it's like a free pass for all, it's not that. It's this way of understanding your strength and your inner capacity to navigate the harshest things that could happen. And when we can somehow find even glimpses of that, that just, that reinforces your soul, um opening up, opening up to others. It's a combination of, like, playing with the idea of, I'm these experiences are being placed on my path to help me grow and to help me help others in some way. There's always something there. And then to have the willingness, and especially people that are having a really hard time for any particular reason, sharing your story, which is then that piece of connecting with others. Sharing your story is one of the most healing things that we can do, because it heals you as you share it, when you feel that place of readiness to share it. And it heals others because we don't feel alone. We connect in new ways. And so what a beautiful, powerful moment for all of us to lean into more collective healing and get more real about what's happening, from that place of, choosing how we respond rather than react to things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I really, again, want to just say thank you for sharing what you're going through. And I'm sure there are people out there that's going to really resonate with. And to see you still be able to smile and laugh and be joyful and show up to help others, while also, committing to being present with all the time that you're blessed to have with your husband. And that's really beautiful, and that's going to inspire a lot of people. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. I received
Well,
that.
thank you for today. I will make sure that everyone knows how to find you. We'll all go check out the reel you made with your goddess self, your human self. Everyone should go do that activation that I did today. It was a free thing on your website, so I'll make sure to put a link to that. And I'm just really grateful that you chose to spend some time with me today. So Thank you so much. And I hope that things continue to go well and just be in that good place that you're in right now.
Thank you, Blaze. Thank you so much this was incredible. I had so much fun. So delightful to chat with you. I'm going to bed with like a smile on my face. Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the work you do, for the stand that you take, for healing and being real and holding space for so much, because I really admire what you're doing is amazing. And, yeah, and I look forward to co-creating other things in the future with you.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Let's continue this conversation in the comments, and for more healing resources, please visit blazebell.com. You are worthy, you are loved, and I am so, so grateful for you. See you next time.